Welcome to another Composer Studio video demonstration. Today I'll be walking you through some functions that are unique to Composer Studio, specifically hot zones and touch zones that allow game-like functionality to be added into your books. And today we'll be looking at Jonathan James and the What If monster as a sample. And we can open up page 2 where I have Jonathan James climbing a tree. And we can see that I have Jonathan as an image being used as a trigger. So he's triggered by if user touch begins, then change the Y position of Jonathan to 250 over 1 second. And we can see what that looks like when we open it up in preview in the top right hand corner. And we touch his head and he comes up to the 250 mark on the Y axis. And let's say we want to touch him again and have him go back to his original spot. I'm touching him right now and nothing's happening, and the reason is because he's already at the 250 mark on the Y-axis where we told him to go. So we're going to need to add another separate trigger to send him back to his original spot. And the way to do that is by adding a touch zone. And you can add a touch zone by going to the Add menu at the top, scrolling to the bottom and selecting Touch Zone. And a touch zone is basically an invisible trigger that recognizes when a user touches within these parameters that a function will be set to a specific image. So let's go ahead and name this Head Down, because that is exactly what Jonathan's head will be doing when you touch this trigger. And so we're going to go ahead and select it and move it to where we think roughly his head is going to end up when he climbs up the tree. And we will add a trigger to this. So if event user touch begins within this invisible trigger, then a transform will happen. Change the Y position of Jonathan to be back to 384 over 1 second where he originally started. And we can see what that looks like when we go into preview. And you touch Jonathan's head and he comes up, and you touch it again and he goes back down to his original spot. So another page I want to talk about is page 4, where I have Jonathan James at the baseball diamond. And we can open it up in preview and see that I've already set a function to the baseball to have physics turned on. And you can drag the ball around, it'll bounce around the screen. But let's say we specifically want to drag it into the tote bag and have it stay and disappear inside of the tote bag. And in order for Composer to recognize when the baseball is inside the tote bag, we have to add a hot zone. And a hot zone is added the same way as you add a touch zone. Through the Add menu at the top right hand corner, select Hot Zone, and it's basically another invisible area that will recognize when an image has entered its parameters. And we can go ahead and name this tote bag. And we can scale it down just a little bit by pinching in with 2 fingers and dragging it on top of the tote bag. And we can go ahead and open it up in an inspector and see the different properties of this hot zone. And one thing to keep in mind with hot zones is you have to set targets for them. And targets are the images that the hot zone will recognize. And specifically, we just want to recognize the baseball. So we can select that and a tick mark will appear beside it. You can select multiples, but specifically, we're just talking about the baseball for now. So you can exit out of that and then select the baseball, go into Inspector, and add a trigger for that. So if event object has entered the hot zone, then add a function. Let's look for set hidden on for the ball. And you can see what that looks like when we go into preview. And the ball will bounce around the page until it goes inside the tote bag and disappears. And this is really fun, especially if you want to add a whole bunch of balls bouncing around the page and you want them all to disappear when they touch the tote bag. It's going to be very fun for kids. An easy way to do this is just copy your assets, and you can touch it, hold down, copy, and paste, and the image will appear directly above it. And you can drag that out. And let's say we want to make 4 baseballs bouncing around the page. So let's make one more. And again, we're going to have to set these all as targets. So we go back to the hot zone and open up targets, and we have to put a tick mark beside ball 1, 2, and 3 also. And when we open this up in preview, we can see that all the balls are bouncing around the page, and when we drag them into the tote bag, they disappear. Which is really fun. You can see there are a lot of opportunities for a whole bunch of fun, different game opportunities with these functions. There's just a whole lot you can do, and keep posted for more updated videos as we progress.